Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Angelo, DePaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, the first podcast to bring the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I am your host, Butch Thierry. We have a great show lined up for you guys this week, but first, let's hear who's making the show possible. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Great Days Outdoors. Are you looking for that one-of-a-kind Christmas or birthday gift? If so, head on over to greatdaysoutdoors.com and check out the best gifts for outdoorsmen 2021. We've curated a bunch of unique gift ideas to help you find an awesome gift for the outdoorsman on your list. Just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/best gifts for outdoorsmen to check it out. And also brought to you by Fishing Chaos. Fishing Chaos recently announced the launch of its new club module and a partnership with National Scouting Report to significantly enhance exposure, recruitment, and scholarship awards for high school anglers. NSR announced last month the addition of fishing to their already successful sports recruiting program. Fishing Chaos invites all high school fishing teams to create a free club on the Fishing Chaos platform. Clubs can hold tournaments within the high school team or invite rival clubs to compete in CPR, catch photo, release events, as well as live weigh-in events, as Fishing Chaos supports most any tournament formats. The addition of the new Fishing Chaos Club Management module allows coaches to easily communicate with the team about upcoming events. It automates the tracking of Angler of the Year or Team of the Year standings and collects angler results. Fishing Chaos will play a key role in recruitment by collecting data on tournament finishes. NSR will build angler profiles based on these results and other criteria important to college programs. If you're interested in setting up a free team club or a tournament, please contact Fishing Chaos today at fishingchaos.com or call Jesse Wilson at 256-508-1853. All right, folks, I am your host, Butch Thierry, and this week I'm joined with Captain Patric Garneson of Ugly Fishing as my co-host. How are we doing today, Captain Patric?
Well, as my customers today had Hank Arnold and his buddies Sam and Tim. They said it was the best trip of their life. So
that's always good to hear as a guy. That's music to your ears, ain't it?
I'm like, yeah, that's a good Google review, I think it
That's
sounds
right.
like.
Yeah, man, I saw some of those pictures. Look like y'all caught some hammers. I've been fishing everywhere, man. I've been enjoying your social media and keeping up with you. Fishing's been hot, man.
It really has. Despite even starting a month out warmer than we did last year, the fish were still right where they were supposed to be based on kind of calendar time frame. Just the bite was just kind of okay. There were days where it would be really good, and some days you'd have to kind of work for it. And then as soon as we got that little cool snap and dropped the waters from 84 down to like 70, 74.
Yeah.
I mean, just about every fish species is chewing pretty well. And we found that today. So Hank is a podcast listener.
Awesome.
And he's been a customer of mine now for a couple of years, it seems like. And we've had some pretty jam up trips together. And him and Sam had booked me back in the spring, and we got on the bull reds out in Dixie bar, and that was entirely like sight fishing. It was like, there's the fish, cast to them, or I was seeing them on the side scan or something like that. But they were like, man, that's the best trip ever. Well, today, like, there was almost like 2 solid hours where there was someone had a fish hooked up the entire time. And I mean, I was huffing and puffing, and all I was doing was netting fish and taking fish out and crisscross. I mean, we had true Dixie bar shuffle.
I was just about to say the Dixie bar shuffle strikes again, huh?
At one point, we had Sam's fish was out. Hank's fish was crossed over and twisted over Sam's line. And then Tim's is coming into the mix. And I had Sam free spooling. I'm like, just open the bail. I don't care how far it goes. Just get it to where that line is not tight anymore. So then I could work with Hank's line. We got him untwisted, got his fish in, got Tim's fish in, and then Sam brought his in. So we got a good triple in there. We got plenty of triples brought in. And then even one time they were all like fumbling around trying to get their fish ready for me to take a picture. And I was like, well, y'all are doing that. I'm throwing out and catching one too. So I baited up, threw it out, just stuck it in a rod holder, grabbed my phone and turned around. And I was like, yep, there's one on there. And let me get y'all's picture and I'll get to my fish.
Golly, man.
But it was redfish and jacks. There were times where we would have a redfish and a jack on. We may have 2 or 3 jacks on at one time, 2 or 3 reds. But man, it was a epic showdown out there on Dixie Bar. And I mean, it was all the classic signs were there to give away the fish. You would occasionally see some fish blowing up. There were slicks just constantly popping up. So even if you had no visual clue as to where to even start drifting, it was just like go to where it looked like someone dumped 100 gallons of diesel fuel because the water was slicking so much. And we just would get above that. And then if all else failed, we just went to the choppiest water. There was another boat that was right there. Like as we were coming around the point, it was super calm on the western side of the tip of Fort Morgan. It was super slick there because of the wind direction. There was another boat that was like trying to stay right in that slick water. We ventured as soon as we rounded the corner and got in the choppy stuff. There's fish blowing up like crazy, and we went over there and we're like tripled up. And I see the other guys; they're like pulled off and they're leaving because they were hanging out in the calm water where apparently there were no fish, and they were all in the choppy water. So
maybe they got seasick.
Man, I don't know. I don't know their story, but I know their story did not involve catching fish,
Triples.
redfish, and jacks on Dixie Bar nonstop until I finally told the guys, like, look, it's time to go. Like, I know that we can keep casting and we can keep catching, but I'm proud of them. Like the last time I went and me, like I was on the rod catching. Like my back and my shoulder was sore. For
I think
days.
me and Dad were out there that day.
Yeah.
I know the pain. I did the same thing that day. Not as many as you did, but
those fellas are gonna sleep. They should sleep well tonight.
Oh, they'll be sore tomorrow.
Tim had the perfect idea. He said, "I'm going straight to a nap, and that way I can catch the whole Braves game tonight." So that'll be a great
plan.
That's a great plan. But
Dixie Bar shuffle strikes again. It sounds like.
Oh man, it was so much fun. It's so much fun to be a guide doing that stuff and taking people to enjoy that sort of thing. I mean, it's it's something that's almost, I don't know, it's almost kind of sad when you tell people that have grown up here their whole life that like, man, and you're like all excited about how, and like, oh, you're just out on Dixie Bar. Like, no, just out on Dixie Bar in an epic showdown of redfish and jacks is not a just statement.
No, it's special.
We have a very special fishery right outside of the bay, and I mean it's as much fun as you can have with a fishing rod, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, well, I mean it's land of the giants. You can catch all kind of stuff out there.
Yep.
What were you guys throwing for bait?
Man, we were we cast netted some pogies in Weeks Bay. I don't think it was necessary. I think we could have just really just drug some dusters or some grubs, because the fish, not only were they not like, they didn't seem spooky at all. Like they were actually coming to the boat at times. And there were times where we'd have a redfish or a jack hooked and you'd just see like the whole school just come up to the surface and come into the boat. Sam was baiting up. He baited one up, and luckily he baited it with the rod in his hand. And when he flopped it over in the water, the jack just came out of the water and ate it like right, inches under the water. And thankfully he had both hands on the rod, because that thing would be sayonara. and Sam did hook something big, possibly a big shark or something, but it pulled 3 times as much line as any other jack that we hooked, and made just like a big loop around the boat, and then it just pulled the hook. We never had a visual of any kind on it, and the line didn't seem very chafed, but it seemed a little chafed. So I don't know, mystery.
Had to have been a blue marlin.
Probably a blue marlin.
Man, one of the biggest bull sharks I've ever seen was on Dixie Bar. I don't know how big it was, but we were on the Lady Ann, and it was at least half the size of the pig of the cockpit. I swear he was half the size of the cockpit. He was giant. Or she was probably. It was probably a she.
Yeah, probably a she. Yep. It's a fun place.
It is. It's very fun. Always tough to catch. I saw some of the pictures. Big old goldfish and them jacks. My little bit of yellowfin, right?
That's right. Oh, well, and that was the cool thing, is on the way down there. So, and let me reiterate, this was all Hank's idea. Hank was like, I want to go to Dixie Bar, and if they're not there, then it's all in your hands. So I was like, all right, well, we're doing your thing for to start the morning. On the way down there, there were fish like blowing up all around the rigs, and I assumed it was jacks, and we slowed down, threw some baits out, caught a jack, lost a couple of fish that we never saw, but I'm pretty sure they were jacks as well. But then that all kind of calmed down, and then we slipped on out around to the bar and hammered down on them. Yeah, it's fun. I don't know that I could do it every day though.
No doubt, it's a lot.
I better start lifting some weights, doing some aerobics and all kind of stuff, because there's a lot of work going on there.
Dixie bar training mode.
Yeah, right.
All right, man. Let's get into this thing. We got some great reports for you guys this week. We'll head on down to Dauphin Island, Alabama, Mississippi Sound. Let's see what the Marshall's been up to. It's been a while since we've heard from Captain Bobby Abruscato, A-Team Fishing. How are we doing today, Captain Bobby?
I'm all good, man. I'm all good. And you'll be proud to know that I haven't been spending all my time in the Sound lately. And that's going to continue to change, I think. But although today we spent most of our day, well, actually all of our day in the Sound today, we're up the bay the last couple of days, just kind of, and I was thinking about it when we were talking before we went on the air about when the fishing gets good enough, when the bay gets right and the salinity's good, and you can fish where the weather lets you fish. You know what I'm saying? So for 3 days or 2 or 3 days, whatever, I've been up the bay, and then the wind flip-flopped around today and came back out of the east, and we moved back down the Sound, and every day we've had great trips. So that'll tell you that the fishing's pretty dadgum good right now.
No doubt. Before we get more into your report, I just got to say that I think that me constantly giving you crap about not catching flounders catching up to me, man. It's got to be the bad juju from making fun of Captain Bobcat. It's got to be.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I've thrown in the towel right now. I've been here I used to think, well, I just can't catch any flounder because there's none around, but I've been hearing these damn reports from Rutland and them about the flounder they're catching. I'm going, wait a minute, I should be catching some flounder, but I still am not catching it. So don't feel bad, my brother. It'll come to you.
So I've been on 3 or 4 or 5 trips. I don't even know how many now. And they're calling me Uno because I can only catch one a trip. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, well, that's all right, man. I'm telling you, it'll come to you, and I'm not going to say, because I don't think I've caught Uno on Uno flounder in about my last 20 trips. So that makes you feel any better?
A little bit.
Well, Butch, are you hooking them and they're pulling off or anything, or are you just like one bite, one fish? Is that typically your game?
One bite, one fish, man. I don't feel like I'm missing a ton of fish. I don't feel like I'm getting bites and not feeling them. I think I'm just cursed.
Okay.
Got the flounder curse. Got the flatfish curse.
Well, that's enough about this. That's enough about curses. Let's hear what Bobby's got to say, man. What you got, Bobby?
Well, I'll tell you, I think what's going to happen, if we get through this blow here the next couple of days, and we're going to get these nights now where we're going to be in like right around 50 degrees. And of course, you guys keep up with water temperature too. You've seen how much it's dropped in the last few weeks, just from the little cool snap we had, 3 weeks ago. We get these nights now where we're going to have these 50-degree nights, and the sun is on the water less and less. So it's going to continue to drop that water temperature. And what's happening is, and you've seen this, Patrick, is these fish are starting to go into this transition mode, which is where they're at the mouths of these tidal rivers. Some days I'm catching them. We finished up today, kind of up in a river, and there were some fish that actually had pushed up in there. If we don't get a lot of rain out of this system that's getting ready to come through here, we're going to get rain, but if it gets through here quick enough, you'll start to see these fish start to push up into these rivers. So, I'm hoping some places like the Delta, Dog, Fowl on the west side, and then of course on the east side, Fish and Magnolia, some of those fish will start to pull up into those rivers. And the good thing about that kind of fishing is it gathers them a little bit better. They're not so spread out like they are right now. You'll hit schools and things like that, but when they start to transition and actually get up in these rivers, that's when you can really get on them real good. They're in there, the bait gets thinned out, and they're gathered up a lot better to where you can actually catch them. There's no more fish. They just gather up a little bit better. So, knock on wood, I hope we don't put the whammy on us, but I think that's what's going to happen over the next week and a half or so. I think you're going to start to see that kind of change go on.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you there, Bobby. One of the things that I've noticed over the last probably 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks, probably really since that last cold snap that you were talking about. When we dropped that temperature down, immediately behind that temperature, we had like some really nice quality speckled trout and just really good action and everything. And then as it kind of trended back a little bit warmer, and although we've had a little bit up and down, the bite seems to just get more and more like with these smaller fish. Do you see that a lot of times after a little drop in the temperature where it just goes to much better quality fish as far as the techniques that you use, or do you see something different than that?
No, that's exactly what was going on for the last couple of weeks. And it's what fascinates me about it is I'm not doing a whole lot of different stuff. That water temperature drops a little bit, fishing kind of the same areas with the same techniques, and you start catching the better sized fish, still decent numbers, but better sized fish. And you go, were they here all along when it was 79, 80 degrees and just not wanting to bite? But now it drops down to 70, 71, 72 degrees, and now those fish are starting to bite. So that's exactly what I've seen. I think they've been there all along. They're just, I think there's two things that are going on. I think number one, they've been there all along. But number two, there's a lot more shrimp in here, a lot more concentration of bait, and you've got a lot more of those small fish in there on that bait. And you have trouble getting through some of those small fish to the better sized fish. But I think as it cools off, some of that bait gets out there, some of the smaller fish kind of thin out with that bait, and that gives the opportunity to the bigger fish to bite. So that's exactly what I see happening. And then I think you're going to continue to see that happen again as it cools off more and more. You'll still catch a lot of small fish, I'm sure, depending on what kind of fishing you're doing, but, catching the white trout and that sort of thing. And I have no problem at all, by the way, with catching white trout, but I think you'll start to see a lot of that thin out. But that's exactly what you just described is exactly what happened to me in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. One of the things that we noticed, we kept a few of those fish. We had one really good day where we had a lot of like 17 to 19 inch trout versus a bunch of like tail pincher 15s and stuff. And man, those bigger fish, almost every one of them had like a pogie about the size of your hand in their belly. So they were really on the, so what's interesting about a speckled trout is here, this fish ate something bigger or as big as that this fish can probably eat, yet it was eating a slick lure or a shrimp imitation or a swim bait or something that was probably, almost as big as this pogie, yet the fish was still eating. And so that's always amazed me about a daggum speckled trout is when they're eating,
they hungry.
those jokers are eating.
They're eating. I'll never forget. I went to the guy who designed a DOA lure, Mark Nichols. I never forget. I went to a seminar he was doing on catching big trout, and he was talking about what you were just talking about. Where in one of the quotes, I'll never forget this. What he said. He says, those big trout when they're swimming around eating pogies and croakers and mullet. While they're doing that, they're eating a whole lot of shrimp too, So they're steady eating when that goes on, and on the heels too, we're talking about what's in their stomach. I do that when I clean fish. I always kind of check, just kind of see what's going on. And before we got that last cool snap, I was cleaning a mixed bag of speckled trout and white trout, and at least 10 of the box of fish I cleaned had shrimp the size that you would actually buy at a bait shop. They weren't those little bitty sea shrimp, and they were freshly eaten, the kind that you could put on a slip cork. I'm talking about like a 25. And so that told me that there was a ton of shrimp in the water. If I'm cleaning fish and they were freshly eaten shrimp, they hadn't turned red or anything. They were the kind that you could almost take out and put back on the hook. You know what I'm saying? So that told me there was a lot of shrimp in the water, and not just a lot of little bitty sea shrimp. I'm talking about big, nice shrimp that you would actually buy, or even eat, and that and that was going on. The same thing you're talking about with these fish were just chowing on that stuff, and because there was so much bait in the water. But I think it's going to help when some of that bait gets out of here. There's so many pogies down the lower. There's pogies all the way up and down the bay, all the way down the sound. There's tons of bait. I still think there's a lot of shrimp around, particularly up the bay. I saw the last few days, and it's what put us on fish were those birds diving on, and those birds are diving on shrimp that are being run to the surface, So I think when that bait starts to thin out, that's going to even improve some too. You know, the worst situation you can get is a whole bunch of bait and a few fish. The best situation you can get is a whole bunch of fish and just a little bit of bait, you know, and I think that's what happens as you transition into this fall, and it truly turns into that fall and even that wintertime deal when you don't have so much bait in the water, you know.
Yeah,
That's right.
If you're a live bait fisherman, it's great. And believe me, I'm not a live bait snob by any means, but you know, when you start talking to the bait shops and they're struggling to catch bait, that's when it's starting to get out of here. And you see some of that going on right now, you know, and it'll continue to go on.
I've been amazed at the amount of mullet that we've been seeing the past couple of weeks. I mean, everywhere we go, I'm pretty sure we ran aground on Monday in the Mississippi Sound on a raft of mullet. I swear, man. It's everywhere. It's everywhere we've been.
That's a bunch.
I've seen it too.
Yeah, I tell you. Let me tell you something. Now, I'm kind of on a little bit of a tangent today. This is really fascinating. Talking about running the ground. I was running out down in the Sound, and I was just catching up with Big Theo, and I saw him kind of do a U-turn and turned around, and I saw something splashing in the water. You know, and we kept going. I was going, gosh, I think he hit a porpoise. You know. So anyway, I'm running on, and he calls me, and he says, "You got to see this." And I said, "What happened? You hit a porpoise?" You know, because I saw something splashing, you know, behind where he'd just run. And he said, "No, you got to come back here, man." He said, "There's 25 manatees swimming around." This was off Point of Pines today. 25 manatees swimming around. 25 in Alabama. I didn't think there were 25 in the whole state.
Yeah.
And they were all over there. So anyway,
that
just made me think
cool.
about that. Was kind of an interesting story. You know, he didn't hit one of them, by the way.
Good.
He didn't hit one. He didn't hit one. He just was telling me he saw them and turned around just to see what it was, and it was a big swarm of them. You know, so that, have you ever seen anything like that? Well, I've seen manatees in our waters, but never that many together.
No, I've never seen them to that effect. But I have two cool manatee stories. One of them, we were set up fishing a shoreline for redfish, and we had been catching redfish, and the bite was starting to die off, and I was about ready to move, and then all of a sudden here comes, like, I see this upwelling swell coming up the shoreline. I'm like, oh my God, well, this is definitely going to end the day right here. A dolphin's coming right up.
Because you're thinking it's a porpoise, yeah.
Right. And then I was like, wait a minute, that thing is going way, these swirls are coming up way too slow. I think that's a manatee. And I was like, hey guys, y'all just keep an eye on that, and it'll be, you know, manatee's probably gonna stick his nose up here in a second. Well, as that manatee came by, all my guys get bit. Apparently the redfish were on the rocks or on that shoreline, and when the manatee came up, the manatee pushed the fish off, and the fish got fired up, and they ate every bait that they saw.
That's cool.
So that was. And then the manatee come up and surfaced, and the guys were hooked up watching manatees at the same time. That was a pretty cool one. And then
that's cool.
And then one, Cooper and I we were running back to the weigh-in. This was back at the Saltwater Fanatics tournament, and Cooper pointed out, he was like, "Dad, what's that over there making all those splashes?" And it was right off the edge of the channel, right across the river, or the river channel from the battleship. And I was like, dude, I don't know, it might be jacks. And the Fanatics tournament had jacks on the tournament, so I'm like grabbing a rod, baiting up and everything, and I'm start idling over there. I'm like, nah, man, I don't think it's jacks. And then I was like, maybe it's redfish. And I was like, no, I don't know what the heck it is. Then we got over there close enough, and it was about 6 or 8 manatees just floundering around, slapping their tails around right there on the edge of the channel. So those are 2 recent manatee stories. Those are pretty cool opportunities for me to see.
And I'm assuming that you didn't cast at them, that there wasn't a category for manatee.
Right.
Manatee jackpot.
You finished the story for me, Bobby. But yes, I did not cast because I didn't have a head of lettuce to cast at them. I would have gave it a go, but no.
I'm surprised you didn't come up with something, because you always come up with some creative way to catch some kind of marine life. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
If there's a creative way to catch it, Garneson will figure it out. I can tell you that.
Well, I appreciate that, Bobby.
Yeah, we were fishing over off Fort Morgan not too long ago, and there was one that came 5 feet from the boat, and that sucker was moving, dude. I mean, he was putting on a wake. He was on a mission from somewhere, and that was the closest I've ever been to one.
The very first one I ever saw in the state of Alabama, I didn't even know they were in. This was back in 2001. The reason I remember the year is because of the boat I was in. Breaking the engine, I was way up the head of Baya Battery. I was breaking the engine in on the boat, and anyway, so I decided to fish. I dropped the trolling motor. This was back in the old handheld camcorders. We didn't have the videos
VHS.
on your phone. This was like a a VHS, like a big the one. And so I always kept one in the boat. Anyway. So I'm going up the bayou, and it's real quiet up there, and I heard something go, poof, and I said, dadgum, what's a porpoise doing? And this was in March, by the way, and I heard something blow, and I looked right next to the boat, and there's a manatee, and I swear to you, he looked as big as the boat I was in. It was a 22-foot Ranger, and it was swimming right next to the boat. And I was going, oh, my God. So I went to reach out. It was raining just a little bit, and I had my camcorder up under the console, and I jumped down there to grab it. Of course, by the time I got it up there and got it turned on and whatnot, it sounded. And so anyway, a guy came running down the bayou in a little skiff, and I'm standing there with my, camcorder looking for the thing to pop back. And I said, man, I just saw a manatee. And the guy goes, oh yeah, man, they're all up in here. And I went like, what? I said, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't think we had manatees in Alabama. Anyway, and since then I've seen a number of them. I didn't know we were going to go. I was going to send us off on this
sea cow tangent
manatee story, but yeah. So I apologize to the listeners if you don't want to.
I think it's all.
I know everybody's tuning in trying to figure out how to catch trout and redfish, and here we are talking about manatees. But
special manatee National Geographic segment.
Yeah.
You want me to bring the conversation back to speckled trout for you, Bobby?
Yeah, let's go back.
Would you please?
So, all right. I'm catching a good many fish, speckled trout, white trout with the birds as my fish locators. A few slicks are popping up where I can find them. Are you having any other clues to help you get started on an area as far as for catching fish besides like birds and slicks, or is that action so good that that's pretty much what you're dialing in on?
It's hard to pass up the birds. You know what I'm saying? When you do, when you're doing that, I mean, they're just a dead giveaway this time of year, so it kind of depends on where I am. Like today we were down in the Sound and there was no bird activity. So I was fishing just history and knowing getting a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do, drifting over grass and that sort of thing, shells, depending on what I was doing. But it seems like when I start to move more up in the bay, I get more of that situation. And I think that's a lot of that shrimp migration, pushing up and down the bay is what's doing that more so than down at the lower end right now. But right now, if I was fishing in the bay, up the bay particularly, I would be looking for any kind of bird activity other than the little lyre birds or pelicans or cormorants. In other words, just greater terns or laughing gulls. And they don't have to be, it's great when they're like hovering and diving and it's just obvious. The guy had, I think it was yesterday, the day before, said, how'd you know to kind of start right here? And I said, man, Ray Charles could have found those fish, because those fish were, this was like a classic, bird school. But even, when you see those birds, the bigger gulls, the terns and the bigger laughing gulls hovering, or even on the water, sitting on the water. I remember Patrick was talking about this one time, but when they're sitting on the water, a lot of times they're right over fish. So, I hadn't been running past any of that stuff. So up the bay, more so birds and that sort of thing. Down in the Sound, more of like slicks and history and kind of basic pattern fishing.
Gotcha. Another thing I wanted to ask you, I am really diverse with the amount, like the lures and stuff that I'm throwing right now. Like I'm throwing little slicks, I'm throwing slick juniors, I'm throwing regular slicks, I'm throwing little slicks under popping corks, I'm throwing swim baits, shrimp imitation under popping corks. And just in the last probably 5 or 6 trips, it seems like I could almost just cut all my shrimp imitation off and do better with my swim baits and my fish imitations. Have you seen anything like that? Are you doing any kind of like mixing it up? Or you keeping pretty standard on the shrimp imitation, or what are you doing there?
You know what? I was thinking when you were talking about that, I was thinking to myself, I was picturing my rod setup that I had today, and I think I carried 12 rods, and I think 10 of them had popping corks with voodoos underneath them. So that'll tell you what, and the other two had top waters on, you know what I'm saying? So, not nearly, and I'm thinking to myself when I'm listening to you going like, maybe I should put some of that other stuff on there and just have it ready, but it just, you get it done. I had a guy today, I had the same group today and yesterday, and one guy was so anti-cork fishing, and he brought his own little tackle box, and dude, he threw everything. And we fished up the bay yesterday and down in the Sound today. He threw everything, and he finally gave up and got on the cork. You know what I'm saying? And so, the long answer to your question is, it just, my mind works like, especially this time of year, in the fall and same way in the spring, is if you can't catch them on a popping cork with a shrimp or a live shrimp or a shrimp imitation, the only next step you got is dynamite. That's the way I look at it. You know what I'm saying? Because that thing is going to catch the fish. And this guy learned that. With that said, that's the answer to your question is I'm carrying almost, it's really bad to probably be as one-dimensional from that standpoint as I am, but it works so well. And it doesn't matter who you have on the boat. I can have a Bassmaster Classic qualifier that fishes with me, and I can have a kid that doesn't even know which end of the rod to hold, and both of them will catch fish on that rig. You know what I'm saying? So, and it works so well when you're staying on the move, fishing over grass, fishing over shells, fishing birds that have shrimp run to the surface because the fish are kind of up in the water column. So it works real well for me. But listen to what you're talking about too. I'm going like, well, maybe I think I am going to put some little slicks on too, and have something else ready just in case,
Well, I tell you, and I don't know if this fits your model of what you want to see on a day, but like I find that having a little slick on often will get me a few bigger fish, and then also how those bull reds will lurk in those schools. Man, a little slick under a popping cork seems like a freaking bull redfish magnet, and that's like. And that can be such a daggum like trip highlight. They can leave the boat, say, oh my God, we caught fish nonstop for 3 hours of the day. And it must have been well over 100 fish. And we caught this big giant bull red mixed in. And anyway, that's been something that's helped me out a lot.
Or when they go and when they go, or somebody goes, yeah, we got 100 fish today. Any size to them? Well, look at this picture right here. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have to tell them the rest of the fish were, whatever they were, but they see that picture, that big bull red, And you're right. And I think that a lot of times that it's when you get, especially when you get on those bird schools, you'll have those fish that are higher up in the water column, and if you can get down below them, you can catch. There's mixed schools of fish on those shrimp. And so if you can get down below some of those schools, the smaller fish, you can catch the better size fish,
Or them big white trout. Man, there's some big white trout around right now.
I'll tell you, there's more white trout around this year than I can remember. I can remember having years where we've had lots of white trout in our area. This year is one that I haven't seen in a long time, to where those white trout are everywhere, and they're good ones, and I'm tell you something. I'd never ever curse a white trout with guys. If I got groups that, and y'all do this too. If you're going to cook them, if you're going to cook them fresh, which most of our people do, you're better off to keep those in the specs.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to, if people that hadn't done it, you got to make a believer out of them. You know what I'm saying? You got to say, look, will you just keep a handful of these and fry them with your specs? Keep them separate. I'll keep them good and cold for you. I'll clean them. They won't have a single bone in them, and I promise you. And I could show you a text where I could probably even send you guys a text of one right now where I got basically a banquet sized table of a family that are eating white trout, going like, thumbs up, man, this is great. I'm glad you sent these, that sort of thing. So I'm preaching to the choir with you guys. I know y'all know that, but I'm telling you, man, if I'll never complain about getting into white trout. I'm not going to sit there and catch white trout all day or target white trout, but if I get into them and people want to keep fish, man, I'm tickled to death. Those are great fish to keep, and if you're going to keep fish to eat.
You got that right.
Man, that's a great report, Captain Bobby. We always appreciate hearing from you. That's some great questions, Captain Patric. Thanks for keeping that rolling. Captain Bobby, if folks want to get up with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Our website is A-Team, all one word, ateamfishing.com, and it's got all of our contact information on there. You can either call us the old-fashioned way or just fill out the little contact form and email it to us, and Miss Kim will get back to you and get you set up.
That's who you want to hear from anyways. That's right.
That's exactly right. If you hear from me, it's probably going to get screwed up. So.
That's right. Well, man, we appreciate you being on. As always a wealth of knowledge, and we look forward to hearing from you next time, buddy. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Bobby.
All right, guys, that's another great segment. Before we get into our next report, we're going to go check in with Joe Baya over at Northwest Florida Fishing Report. I hope you guys are kind of enjoying the new format we've been doing. We've been kind of trying to dig into things here and there that we think will be beneficial to our listeners. We've been sure enjoying it. Today, we're going to be talking with West Marine on about seasickness. How we doing today, Joe?
What's going on, Butch? Man, you and I have personally never dealt with seasickness in a sense that I've luckily not it just doesn't affect me very much. I've had a few queasy moments, didn't love the way that felt, but I've certainly seen some people have a really bad day on the water. Some funny stories around it and some not so funny stories around that.
I guarantee you it wasn't funny for the people that were being
no.
On the bad end of that deal.
Never seen it. Like as soon as their feet hit dry land, man, they are a whole different person.
Yeah, I'm curious to get some ins and outs of it, and hopefully we can try and figure out how for that not to happen to some of our folks that are a little bit scared to go offshore.
Yeah, man. Let's go talk to our expert today. Today, we're going to be talking to Erik Rimblas. He's with West Marine. They carry a lot of products that work for seasickness. Hopefully we can help you prevent it. What we learned today. So Erik, welcome to the show, man. Today it's probably something that's going to bring back a lot of bad memories for some people, I would imagine,
Would imagine so as well.
Seasickness is no fun. Luckily, I'm one of those people that for whatever reason doesn't get it, but I've known people that never got it and then started getting it as they were older. I've known people that literally, and this is a completely factual statement, that started getting seasick on the dock looking at the boat, like they were already feeling the effects of it. You guys at West Marine, you carry a lot of products that help people deal with seasickness, whether that's prevention or actually being on what you actually do on the boat. But I think what's important before we jump into those kind of things is, man, what causes seasickness? Why do some people get it and some people don't? And what's really the cause of it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can jump into it. Yeah, it's a bit of a mystery to a lot of people, and the kind of the physiology of it is pretty simple. It's really a disagreement between what your body's feeling and what your eyes are seeing, right? So your eyes are telling your brain that the ocean's not moving. Everything's okay. You can see the horizon, or you can see things standing still if you're down below, but your body's feeling all of this motion, right? And so there's this portion in the inner ear that is really the area of your body that controls balance and is really sensitive to balance. And that is what's kind of taking this physical input of you kind of moving around, but your eyes are telling your brain that, hey, you're not moving around. And so that disagreement, that misalignment between those two senses, and is really what causes you to start getting queasy. And that is it. And so a lot of the products or practices really center around dealing with that. And there's different ways to deal with that, which I'm sure we'll get into. But that is the basic premise of how you get seasick.
It's interesting to hear you say that. I'm sure Butch would echo this, but I can look at somebody's face and tell when they're getting seasick.
Oh, without a doubt.
And I don't mean the green around the gills look. I mean like they've got this. I'll call it the 1,000-yard stare. Like they just are kind of. You can just they're kind of spacey. They're not that quick answering your questions. They're just kind of. It's almost like they just want to. Just get away from me,
They're
like
thinking about it. They're thinking about it. They're like,
totally.
Man, this is about
they're
to
like,
happen.
why do I feel not so great?
Get that little saliva in the back of your mouth.
Oh God.
well, I mean, first things first. We've all seen it, right? The guy that shows up at the dock at 5 a.m. smelling like a brewery. I would say that's probably the first mistake that I see. As coming from the deckhand perspective on this. So let's talk about preventing seasickness a little bit, Erik.
Yeah, well, you just hit the nail on the head on one of the main things, which is, it's obviously, fishing is a very social activity. Boating is a really social activity, and many times that activity starts the night before, right? And one of the key things specifically around seasickness is being hydrated. And of course, those kind of activities that you may do the night before are kind of contrary to that, right? And so, yeah, if you've had a few the night before and you haven't properly hydrated, that is right out of the gate, a sign that you might be having some trouble on that boat ride. So yeah, getting hydrated, staying hydrated is super critical, because that is one of the key things that happens when you get, any kind of motion sickness, but definitely seasickness. And also being rested. I mean, just your body being, rested and in a state where you can handle the physical activity. Again, a lot of people just, kind of wake up in the morning after maybe a couple hours sleep, and they're going to go jump on the boat and go fishing. I know I've done it a million times. I'm sure we all have, but it is one of those things that can trigger, or at least make it a little easier for somebody to get seasick. And so in terms of prevention, those two are big deals. But the most important part of prevention of seasickness, even if you're not as well rested as you'd like, or maybe not as hydrated as you should be, is to make sure that you keep your eye on the horizon. So if you need to be outside on the outside of the boat, and making sure that you're avoiding that disagreement, between what your brain is getting from your eyesight and what your body's feeling from the boat. That's the number one thing you can do to make sure you prevent any kind of seasickness, is keeping that disagreement from happening. And then lastly, everybody's heard the term sea legs. Everybody, you get your sea legs. That's important too, and as kind of silly as it may sound, doing that thing where you're moving with the boat, and kind of keeping your body in rhythm with the boat, particularly if there's some pretty good seas, that's a pretty big deal too. But so yeah, staying hydrated, making sure you're rested before you get out there, getting your sea legs under you is a big deal. But most importantly is keeping an eye on the horizon, and just making sure you don't get that disagreement between your body and your brain.
I used to see it a lot, as a deckhand. A lot of folks coming down the dock, they got the patch around their ear, or they got the band on their wrist, or they've started taking their Dramamine, or whatever type of
or all of the above.
Yeah, or all the above, because they really want to fish, but they've dealt with this before. They're going to beat it this time. One of the things that with Dramamine is that it does make you drowsy. I've noticed that with folks. They started taking that Dramamine the day of. Is there anything with regards to prophylactic medication? So one of the things I used to always tell people, I didn't have any science behind this. This is just my experience, was start taking that Dramamine 24 hours before you get on the boat. Let it get in your system. Let work the drowsiness out. Because what I saw people do is they would take that Dramamine, they're drowsy. First thing they do, guess what? They go in the cabin, they lay down, and now we're dealing with what you just said, Erik, which is that eye connection. Their eyes are not on the horizon. They're looking at the interior walls of the cabin. They're inside dealing with fumes, all those kind of things. I wanted them to just be kind of operating on full capacity, like you said. Be well rested. Don't be dehydrated, hungover. Have had a good meal in your system, and don't be drugged up. Is there anything to that though? What do you think you would recommend as far as prophylactic medications, or like the different seasickness bands that are out there?
Yeah, sure. So in cases like with products like Bonine and Dramamine, which are those products that you're talking about, which are pretty over the counter. I mean, you can get those at any drugstore. We sell them at West Marine as well. Those products, although in recent years they have come out with non-drowsy formulas, which is a big improvement. They are medications that have to be taken in advance. And so you kind of know that you kind of have to do it in advance. I think 24 hours is probably a little bit outside of the window, but definitely the night before, or a minimum a few hours before, no less than that. They do not work once you start feeling sick. I mean, that is not what they do. They are pure prevention medication. And so and they work pretty well. They're pretty consistent. Most people that are kind of middle of the road in terms of motion sickness, seasickness, those products work pretty well. Absolutely want to make sure you take those in advance. And if you're using the formulas that make you drowsy, which some people say work better than the non-drowsy formulas, you definitely want to take those well in advance, so that you can kind of burn through that period, like you said, about not being drowsy right away. As far as the other types of products, I mean, there's basically three groups of products. I mean, there's those over-the-counter products, and I'll say slash prescription products, which is the patch you were talking about. I'll mention that in a second. And then there's some what you would call kind of herbal remedies, ginger-based products. That are also used for not just prevention; those are actually used for treatment once you start feeling sick. That those work for some folks, and then you kind of have these physical products that work on the premise of acupuncture. Those have been around a long time and work really well for a lot of people as well. But those scopolamine patches, that's the name of the medication, that are those patches that you got to get a prescription from a doctor. My wife actually uses those, and they work incredibly well. In fact, for her, it's one of the only things that works. You got to get a prescription for them. They can last for up to 3 days. So if you're doing a tournament weekend, where you're on the Kingfish series or whatever, where you're fishing 2-3 days in a row, and you are prone to seasickness, that is the trick. Those scopolamine patches are really, really good. They do have some side effects. If you think that Dramamine makes you drowsy, I mean, scopolamine is like, it's like triple the drowsiness formula there. It's
Dang.
really strong stuff. But those patches work well. And then you have, like I said, these herbal remedies, things like Queezaway, there's Emotion Ease, even ginger beer, which is, a product you can buy at your local grocery store, or use them in, Moscow mules. Any ginger based product really helps with your stomach, any issues you have with your stomach. Which is where you start to feel that before it starts coming up, before you start, chumming the waters for fish, right? You're doing that. Those ginger-based products really work well to kind of help just kind of settle your stomach. They're not going to do anything about, what's going on in your head, the headache and all that, but they'll definitely settle your system a bit. And then I guess the last products are these acupressure products, right? And so you have the bands, and then, the electronic bands, which I can talk about. So.
All right. So we're talking about preventing it. That's what we want to do, is just prevent it altogether.
Ideally, for sure.
Yeah. But, like I've definitely seen Dramamine like thrown up overboard, like they had just taken it that morning and they're up chucking it. So I'm thinking like, all right, if somebody's basically didn't listen to anything we just said, they went out the night before on a bender, they showed up at the dock, they haven't had a good meal, they haven't taken any kind of medication, they start feeling bad out on the water. Is there anything you can be prepared with when you're actually out there to stop it? Can you do anything to care for it once you're there?
Absolutely. So, so like I mentioned earlier, any of these products that are ginger-based products will help people feel better. And that's just going to help people feel better. Those products will not get rid of the seasickness per se. You're still going to, kind of have the headache and not feel all that great, but it'll help with all the kind of issues that are happening, because of your gastrointestinal system. The one product that currently has proven to be pretty darn reliable in terms of, once you start feeling sick, is a product that's relatively new. I mean, it's been around for, I don't know, probably half a dozen years or so. It's called the Relief Band. And the Relief Band, it looks like a watch. And you wear that on one wrist. There's a pressure point just below, about 1.5 inches below your wrist, right in the middle of your arm there. And this little thing has 5 different settings or so, and it sends a little tiny electronic pulse, down through what looks like this watch. And you can actually put that on after you start feeling the motion sickness, the seasickness, and you can graduate it. You can 1 through 5, depending on how much you want to use and whether or not it's working. And it actually starts to kind of melt away that feeling. I've actually used it myself. I'm fortunate, just like you said, Joe. I don't get seasick very often. It's happened maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, but because my wife does, we own a couple of these, and I've actually used it, and it works pretty well. FDA approved. I mean, it's a proven product, and so that is the only thing that has proven to work after you start feeling seasick. In terms of practices, not product, the best thing, again, if you're down below, which is a pretty common thing for people to do in a larger boat when they start feeling sick, what do? They go down below to go lay down? No, you want to get up. You want to get up on the deck. And it is a good idea to lay down, but make sure you can lay down in a place where you can see, because again, you're trying to align that whole thing that I talked about earlier between your brain and your inner ear, right? So, some of the things that people do right away, kind of work contrary to that. But yeah, the Relief Band, I'd say, is really the only kind of proven thing on the seasickness. And then, the ginger-based products like Queezaway and Motion Ease that help you just feel better, after you start feeling sick. So
that's cool. I've never used a Relief Band, and I don't even. That was probably after
my
time, because I was curious about that. I know I've never actually been seasick. I've definitely felt queasy. And what I always would do that worked for me is I just, whatever I was doing, just change it up. So a lot of times it may have been related to smells like diesel fumes or cut bait. I mean, there's different things that were kind of making me, I'm like, I don't like the way this is, so I go get fresh air. If I was on the deck, I'd go try to get elevated. If I was elevated, I'd get down on the deck. If I was looking towards the bow, I'd look towards the stern. I mean, just mix it up. And that always seemed to work for me. And maybe that was psychological, but maybe it was some of that that connection that you're talking about, where I was just stopping whatever I was doing, but you mentioned the cabin and places to avoid. Is that really the key though? Is somewhere where you can keep that long view? Is that what are those the places you want to avoid on a boat?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything where you can't help your body have that alignment between what you see and what you feel. I mean, those are the things that really make a difference. And so, you talk about on a good sized fishing boat, if you're the guy fishing on the bow, I mean, you're really the one that's kind of pitching up and down, right? If you're the lucky straw that draws the
Mhm.
draws the bow position when you're out there. And that's a great comment you made about moving to somewhere else, right? Anywhere you can move that's really closer to the middle of the boat or even the stern of the boat, those parts of the boat move less.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you drew the unlucky straw to be the guy that's fishing on the bow, trade places with somebody and go fish on the stern or maybe kind of a midships. But yeah, anything that's where you're inside that you can't see, that's the places you want to avoid if you're prone to seasickness or if you start feeling seasick. I mean, that's one of the immediate things to do, like you mentioned. What are you going to change up? Because obviously something that you're doing or something that's impacting you is causing you to feel that way. Go change it up right away. One of the things for sure, if you're down below, you absolutely want to get up on deck where you can have a clear view, and then ideally closer to the center of the boat, or maybe somewhere in the transom, in the back of the boat, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
Fresh
definitely, that's a good comment.
fresh air. Fresh air is definitely a big deal too. I know we talked about being outside and everything, but man, a breeze makes a huge difference.
Seems like it does for sure. The other thing is like, is there any science behind, or do I always felt like the folks that fought it, like once you are actually sick and you think you're going to be sick, just
Just
let it
get it over
go,
with.
man. Get
Get
it
it
over
over
with.
with.
I feel like people, once they got it over with, a lot of times they could overcome that. It seemed like the ones that really let it linger and let it just carry on were the ones that it affected the most. Is there anything to that once you kind of let it happen, it's over with?
Yeah, so that's pretty well documented as you do some research on the topic a little bit, which I did in preparation for this and just in general, because again, my wife gets really motion sick, and we're talking roller coasters, car rides, plane rides, and so this is a topic that's secondhand I know quite a bit about just because of that, and it is absolutely one of those things that don't fight it. If you feel like you're gonna go throw up, right? I mean, just go get it over with. You will feel better immediately and start the road to recovery. And what I learned and looking all that stuff up and actually talking to some folks, some doctors that are customers of ours, yeah, you're preventing the beginning of the recovery from happening, by kind of fighting it. And then and this is a little far less proven or documented, but there's a psychological factor too. You talked about those folks that show up on the dock and they're already looking a little
Yeah.
like their sea legs aren't under them, right? And if you think you're gonna get sick, you're probably gonna get sick,
Yeah.
and so, those folks that are kind of fighting it off, I mean, there's an element to that too. But yeah, if you start feeling queasy, man, and you have the ability to, begin that process, just go for it, and then just start getting hydrated and get to the middle of the boat and do all the other stuff we talked about. And if you have things like, like these ginger products or a relief band, then for sure. But yeah, absolutely, one of those things you do not want to fight it. Just let it go. So.
I definitely think, and I used to say it all the time, and I'm pretty sure that everybody wanted to punch me in the face. People that actually, weren't psychological about getting seasick. I'm like, just stop thinking about it, because
Right.
the more you
Right.
think about it, the worse it's going to be.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
definitely think, I mean, I've literally, like Joe said, I've literally seen people looking at the back of the boat being like, I'm like, you're not
Yeah.
even on the boat yet. It's physically
Right.
impossible for you to be seasick.
Yeah, but
You're
that's
not
like
sick.
saying somebody's got a cat that's like biting their calf, and you're like, just stop thinking about the cat that's
Right.
gnawing at
Right.
your leg. Like,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
I don't
Don't worry
think
about
that's gonna happen. Well, Eric, man, this has been fun. I feel like I've definitely learned some stuff about how we can hopefully prevent it, but if we don't, definitely take care of it once it happens. Appreciate you joining us today, man. I know you guys carry a lot of these products, but if somebody wants to maybe refresh this information the next time they go out, you also have some additional resources over at westmarine.com. Where can they go to see everything you guys have compiled for those trying to take care of the seasickness problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, aside from all the products that we have that you can get, everything from basically all the stuff we talked about, from the over the counter stuff to the ginger stuff to the bands, we actually have a pretty neat thing on westmarine.com. It's called our West Advisor series. So you can literally go to westmarine.com, type in seasickness, and in addition to seeing the products you can buy, there's also an entire page dedicated to just educating people on what seasickness is, what causes it, how to prevent it, and how to deal with it once it starts. And so it's pretty comprehensive. basically everything you ever want to know about seasickness, what to do to not get it and what to do once you get it. So yeah, check that out on westmarine.com and you'll see all the products as well as all that information.
Well, Erik, again, thanks for joining us, man. Before we started the show, we were talking to you. You're down in Fort Lauderdale. Got the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show going on right now. I know you guys are busy over there. We'll let you get back to it. Go tell our guys, Killer Doc, hello. There's some folks from up our way. Make sure you get on by their booth and check them out. And I appreciate you joining us.
Right on, man. Sounds good. Thanks for the opportunity.
What you think, man?
I'm really glad I don't get seasick.
Me too. All this seasick talk's making me a little queasy.
Right.
No, man, it's obviously a huge problem. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, but a lot of people do get seasick. And I mean, I have a lot of friends that I fish with constantly that it's always a battle. Somebody always keeps Zofran on hand, especially when we're getting older, man. You're not getting any younger. You're definitely not getting any prettier.
No, I just hate it for folks,
Me too. Me too.
I do feel like probably, again, I don't know the statistics on it, but at least 80% of the time,
there's a lot of people
that I see somebody getting sick. They've got one of these preventable things in their, like they didn't get enough sleep. Yep. They were out partying the night before, or they knew that they got seasick and they didn't take their medication. They got taking their medication the minute they started feeling bad, as opposed to the night before or whatever.
Getting it in before and let it start working before you get out there.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is preventable, but that relief band deal is pretty interesting too, because I did not think that there was really much you could do once you're there. I was always telling folks, man, just let it go. Like it's no pride here. Just let it happen. But so that's kind of interesting that there is something you can actually do about it.
Man, it'd be worth having one or two of those on the boat just
on your boat. Yeah, in your
because it'll ruin a day. It'll ruin a whole day. Yeah, first aid kit. That'd be perfect for that. Man, ruin a whole day if somebody gets seasick. You got 4 or 5 people on the boat. Even if we're not talking about a big charter. I mean, one person down is not great.
Well, and a lot of those
production, and it's not fun.
And a lot of those days, you're not turning around whether you get sick or not.
That's what I was going to say. We'll just ice you down. I mean, we're not going back.
Right.
No turning around here.
Oh man, we're gonna have to do another show and just tell stories about people getting seasick. That would be fun.
Tales from the high seas.
All right, buddy. I'm gonna go wrap up this report. Good talking to you.
Sounds good, man. We're gonna go get the next report as well. We'll talk to you next time. All right, guys, let's take a quick break and hear from a few of this week's sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Mustad Fishing. Today, 1 in 4 hooks in the world is made by Mustad Fishing. The Mustad brand can be found in over 160 countries and covers all disciplines of fishing. Now more than just a hook manufacturer, they have expanded their product range over the years to satisfy every need of the modern fisherman and woman. They understand that anglers like you would never accept anything less than premium quality, which is why they hold themselves to that same standard. See why Mustad is the best-selling hook brand in the world. Enjoy 25% off your next order at mustad-fishing.com by using code GREATDAYS at checkout. And also brought to you by Boaters List. Boaters List is your new reliable and fast resource designed to link everyone to everything on the water. If you own or run a boat, you know how difficult it can be to find the right company for the task at hand. Boaters List makes it easy to find the service that you are looking for. Locate anything from fuel docks to service repairs or rentals of large yachts, even down to paddle boards and all things in between. BoatersList.com will always strive to make it better on the water. All right, Captain Patrick, it's always good to hear from the Marshall and Mississippi Sound. Even though we got a little National Geographic on the Sea Cow segment, I think it was still some good stuff. Good stuff.
I think if you didn't learn anything or at least laugh at the bull that we were talking, then you missing out. So.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I tried to jump on that one that me and Captain Richard saw, but he wouldn't let me. I mean, are you really a man if you hadn't ridden a manatee?
Hey, I had a manatee. I didn't even tell this part. I had a manatee earlier this summer. It came up and it blew out air, whatever manatees do. They come up and breathe. This thing actually put its nose against the fiberglass in my boat.
That's funny.
Yep. I had my phone in my hand and I didn't video it, take a picture, nothing. I was more in shock that the thing just came up and just like pressed his nose against my boat. But anyway, here we are talking manatees again. Who we got next?
It happens. Apparently it happens. Man, let's head on down to Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Alabama. Let's see what Captain Dusty's up to. What'd you say, Captain Dusty? How we doing, brother? Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, good, man. It's been a while. It's been a long time. So, but yeah, fishing's heating up for sure. These cold fronts are helping. Of course, this weekend, we got some gnarly weather coming in. It's going to be, getting surf up to close to 10 feet actually over the next few days. But get everybody a good weekend to watch some football and get your tackle ready for weeks to come. As these cool fronts come through, that pompano bite will actually pick up. A lot of people say, oh, they've already kind of finished it up for the year, but it really is just going to get better from here on out. We'll catch a good many of pompano all the way through December and January even, depending on the water temperatures. But redfish are starting to make a presence as far as the bigger ones, more and more, every week as far as the numbers of the bulls. But a lot of guys catching some big ones on Fort Morgan already, and there's still been a good number of jacks out there. And the flounder bite has been killer for a lot of people, everywhere, and which is awesome. It's good to see that the state's program is working and picking those flounder numbers up. A lot of guys catching them off the beach and walking, especially around the Fort Morgan area. And as far as that goes, it's any plastics, grubs. I know my buddy Bun, I'm sure everybody's seen him on Facebook catching them on the Fish Bite Fight Club lures, the dirty boxers and all that stuff. And a lot of guys throwing gulps as well on jig heads and catching, like I said, a good number of flounder and some actually really good size ones for once. But so that's nice to see. And the whiting bite has been pretty killer along the beach for a lot of people. As far as size, it seems like a lot of smaller ones, but a lot of numbers for sure on the whiting, and that's just really going to get better as it cools off. So yeah, it's that time of year. It's honestly my favorite time of year to surf fish. Spring's great and all, but there's a lot of pressure, especially nowadays in the spring. Weekdays, if you can, in the fall, you'll have some incredible fishing over the next couple months for sure.
Dusty, let's jump into the flounder conversation a little bit. There's a lot of
my favorite.
There's a lot going on with the flounder right now. And you mentioned several lure types. If someone's just like maybe named Butch that needs to go catch a flounder, how is he going to go do that? Once the surf calms down and just going to go walk the beach or get on the jetties, where would be a decent place to start and maybe some decent tactics? Kind of walk us through that a little bit.
I like fishing personally, everything west of West Pass and Gulf Shores. Now, they'll be up and down the whole beach, but the reason I like that area is just because there's a lot more structure along the beach. So there's a lot more pockets where that sandbar is really close, and you just have this, 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 foot of water, where the current's coming over in these little, deep pockets really, really close to the beach. Those fish will get in there overnight, and they'll just pretty much hang out there, wait for bait. You have stuff like little mullet, a little juvenile whiting, all kinds of stuff that they'll be feeding on in the surf zone right there. And you'll see them, you almost step on them sometimes. They'll be so close. Now, as the day goes on, they'll move out further. And then if there's a lot of fishing pressure, people swimming, stuff like that, and they'll get out actually behind that sandbar, which I've done it plenty of times down the Fort Morgan area, wade out to that sandbar and throw into that deep water. And when you get a good flounder run like we got going right now, you can just throw in that deep water and just fan cast and catch numbers of fish. Cool thing is too is, with it being closed in November, those fish are still going to be there, but they're not getting, killed. So, the pressure might be there, but they're not, just getting eliminated. So, those fish are still going to be there, which is awesome for surf fishing and just catching numbers over the next couple months. But as far as just, throwing lures in the surf, I really just like to walk, cover ground, fan cast. I like to just fish something on the bottom. I don't hop a jig as much. I more drag it in the surf, just keep contact with the bottom. Just a real slow, steady retrieve, keep my rod tip pointed down, and just fish all those little deep pockets, all the corners, and don't be afraid to even cast along the bank, along the shoreline, because you will pick up numbers of fish doing that. But like I said, just covering ground is the big thing. If you walk up to a little pocket that's, say 30 yards wide and 10 yards across, I'll make maybe 10 casts across it, and then I'm walking on down to the next one. So I'm not going to spend a super long time at any one spot. It's a good thing to do, just like you're doing summertime trout and redfish, backpack or a fanny pack, and carry a rod with you and just cover some ground. And it's good exercise. It's good to get out and fish. And flounder fishing, you'll do see guys pick them up, just sitting on the bank, occasionally on pompano rigs and cut baits and stuff like that. But it's a lot more productive to just fan cast and cover ground as opposed to just sitting in one spot. Now if you do want to sit somewhere and pompano fish and redfish or whatever you want to do while you're sitting there, it doesn't hurt to fan cast while you're sitting there with a lure, if you don't plan on covering a lot of ground. But yeah, it's definitely very productive this time of year. I mean, it's something I love doing. So,
well, all right. Well, one step further, what are some, if there are any visual clues to give an angler to, hey, I want to, I'm walking the beach, I'm fan casting.
I'm gonna pick this one apart.
Yeah. What's something that I need to pick apart before I just keep trudging along?
Yeah, I'm looking for depth. I mean, I found them in very shallow water, but I really like looking for the depth there. Anything in that 2 to 5 foot range is awesome, and lots of current. Current moving across some of these spots is all is definitely a good thing to look for. But as you're walking, you'll see a lot of pockets are going to be fairly shallow, and maybe only a foot deep or so. So I'll still throw in there, but I'm not going to spend as much time. I'm going to look for a bigger pocket, a bigger area, and also somewhere where that back sandbar that makes this pocket opens up, and where that current's either pushing out of that pocket or crossing the point of the sandbar. And you'll even have fish on the sandbar in that shallower water, just using that as an ambush point for bait that's coming out of that pocket over that bar. So just like I said, it's just like with anything else. It's a lot of the same stuff we look for on trout fishing in the summertime, throwing lures and even throwing pompano jigs. Just any structure that's different on the beach. Just flat sand, for miles, they'll be there, but it's just hard to really pick them apart because they're going to be spread out just kind of wherever. But anywhere you can find more of a hard beach structure, just hard curves in the sandbar up close. Just anything that's just so irregular, it stands out right away. I mean, that's where those fish are going to be. And like I said, sometimes you'll have knee-deep water just right on the shoreline, and that's killer stuff to look for this time of year. Because they're not afraid to be right there. I mean, some of the biggest flounder that I've gigged off the beach have been seriously. I mean, half their backs are out of the water as the waves are crashing. So. Don't be afraid to fish up close. You don't always have to make the furthest cast ever. It seems like a lot of the ones I've caught on rod and reel over the years have been, they're usually within 10 yards of you. Not too often on a really long cast, unless it's like midday, higher sun, then you'd want to wait out a little bit or make those longer casts in those deeper pockets. But early morning, I mean, they can literally be anywhere. And you don't have to just throw plastics, like if you go out and you get a little more surf, that 1 to 2 foot range, you can throw stuff like rattle traps. Rattle traps is awesome bait. You'll pick up redfish and bluefish doing that, but flounder love them too. And I actually caught quite a few flounder on. Oh yeah, I caught quite a few flounder on jerk baits this summer. Trout fishing, like Berkeley cutter and.
Captain Bobby loves his spinner baits for flounder too.
Absolutely, yep. And they're very opportunistic fish, and they're not afraid to follow something. Everybody thinks that there's a flounder, they're lazy to sit on the bottom, and sometimes that's true. But I've seen them, chase all kinds of stuff. And if you watch videos of guys like John Skinner up in the Northeast, I mean, he'll have a dozen flounder 10 feet off the bottom, following his bait like any other fish would. So yeah, they are ambush predator, but if there's something that catches their eye, I mean, they'll come up and and definitely hit something off the top and or come off the bottom and chase something. They're not just going to only sit in one spot.
Yeah, one thing you said to me, or you just said that kind of keyed off to me, is ambush. They are ambush predators. So anything with the kind of a relief or a hole, like you said, that trench right next to the beach, that's what sticks out to me, is somewhere where that big old flounder can sit and wait for something to cruise by and crush it.
Yep, those hard edges on those sandbars, like I said, where that current's coming over, those hard edges, they'll sit there. It may be on the bar or it might be in the hole looking at the bar, but in that current, there's always going to be some sort of current, or at least you hope so. And if you throw up current and let that bait drift into those holes, I mean, that's also another productive thing when you're walking and fishing those little pockets along the beach, is throw up current into the shallower water and just let your bait drift. You can vary your jig head size. Like I like to do like a 1/4 ounce if I'm doing something like that, where I'm just trying to if I have an east or west current, I'm trying to let my bait drift into that pocket. Then I'll do a little lighter jig head. That way I get a little more natural movement and just let it do its thing. I'm not hopping it. I'm really just reeling up my slack and just kind of keeping that tension just enough where I feel a bite. And those flounder grab it, you'll see it. I mean, they'll stop that lure, they'll stop that drift. And it's almost like watching a worm when you're bass fishing. You'll see that line thick. Another thing to look for too is, once you get a bite on them when you're beach walking, I mean, this is something that if you just want to target bigger fish, a lot of times once you feel them eat, you can almost drag them. And if you drag that fish, a lot of times it's not going to be a bigger fish. It's going to be usually not a keeper size. So sometimes you can just kind of pull it out of their mouth. But if you go to drag and it puts a big bend in that rod, I'll usually go ahead and set the hook.
Put the hammer down.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Yeah, absolutely. And something else too to consider is, with November being closed, a lot of people wait a long time on their flounder bites before they set the hook, and that's something you might want to consider as far as killing fish. Especially if you're fishing live baits, you don't want to let them eat it too long, because if you gut hook that fish, you risk killing it, and they're out of season. You can't take it home, so you don't want to kill fish for no reason.
Good tip.
Yeah, man. I was going to ask, like Tanner was talking last week on here, he likes a paddle tail a lot. Not specifically for flounder, but I know, I've been seeing other people catch them on, paddle tails and or the curly tails or a double curly tail. Do you have any preference on that?
Flounder are one of those things. I think it's more of a location deal than it is, color or a particular bait.
Yeah,
I do like a soft plastic paddle tail. I mean, they're hard to beat just because they're so versatile. There's so many different brands, and I like something with a lot of action. Like there's a few brands in particular, I'm not gonna say any names obviously, but that are just kind of just dull. They're thicker plastic, and it makes them a little more durable, but they just don't have that tail action. One of my favorites is the Saltwater Assassin little balls, just because it's soft and it just kicks a lot. It's a ribbed body, so it puts out a lot of water displacement. But like a lot of the Kitex and stuff work really good too for that same reason. But when you go to something like a Kitech, you lose that durability. So there's 1,000 brands out there. There's a bunch of good ones. Finding a paddle tail that has a mixture of softness, where it has a good action, and you feel that thump on your rod tip, but also one that's durable, that's not going to tear up every time you get a bite. Because when you're flounder fishing, I mean, they got some wicked teeth. I mean, you're going to go through baits, but you like to get a couple, 2 or 3 fish out of a bait, not, oh, I got a bite, now I got to replace my whole lure. So like I said, different brands you just kind of play around with, and you'll instantly just build confidence in a lure just from using it and say, okay, I've done good with this one. I have buddies that are huge on matrix shad, and like I personally don't like throwing them because I don't feel like they have the action. But then vice versa, I got guys that only throw Kitex because they love the action on them. They don't mind burning through a $8 pack of baits to get 5 fish.
Yeah. So
there's plenty of stuff to go around with it. And if you get heavier surf, Hoagie makes they actually now make a 3/4 ounce pre-rigged swim bait. And they make the 1 ounce, and they make it in the split tail and just a single paddle tail. And they're a pre-rigged bait. They're heavy as all get out. So like they're good for just deep applications, but also like flounder fishing off the beach when you have a little more current, a little more surf. I always keep one, in the surf cart or in my backpack, ready to go for, if that wind kicks up, I got something I can just sling into that wind and it'll cut that wind, and it makes a really long cast. It'll stay on the bottom. It's not going to drift super hard. So, but past an ounce, I don't really want to throw that in the surf. A 1/2 to 3/4 is a really good size for if you're just flounder fishing.
Okay. Well, hey, Dusty, we're about to go through some weather, cooler temps, and then it looks like it's going to get fairly consistent as far as air temps, which will keep the water temps pretty consistent. What are do you have any kind of tip or anything that would, someone that's listening to the podcast today that's maybe coming down, maybe in the next 10 days or so, wants to do some surf fishing, maybe give me I don't know, like a summary, or just just keep it simple.
Seasonal forecast template.
Yeah. How are we going to catch some fish?
I would say, hands down, find you an area, whether it's behind your condo or somewhere like to the west, where, Gulf Shores, like West Beach, or even anywhere from there to Fort Morgan, pompano rigs, basic stuff. And this time of year in the fall, like to have as many floats and stuff on my rigs. I prefer just to do beads or even nothing but a hook and a piece of shrimp, fish bites, whatever bait you want to use. But have you a couple rigs out deep for the pompano that are running by. You also pick up slot reds doing that, bluefish, plenty of other things. Definitely, if you can, try to fish cut baits, especially early and late, like, fresh cut whiting, fresh cut mullet, or even like blue crab or something like that for your bull reds that are going to be coming through. And then I love to have a really light Carolina rig or a single drop rig with a small circle hook, like a Owner Mutu size 2 or a 4, up close in those closer troughs, or even if just close in general in the surf. The whiting numbers are incredible in the fall, and you'll actually get some really good size. And since we've just now starting to get these cool offs, after this next little front, it should really fire up. Usually around Halloween is when I'll start going out there for the next month and a half, 2 months, and hurting on some big whiting. I mean, a lot of this 15, 16, 17-inch fish. And it seems like, you get the size, you won't have as much quantity, but it also does the opposite. You'll be catching 50, 60 a day, and, they'll all be averaging 10 to 15-inch fish. So that whiting bite is something that, like, I recommend anybody key on because they're simple. You can use a heavier rig, a regular pompano rig with floats and such, and still get those bites. But if you really downsize to like a lighter, 10, 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon, smaller hooks, and a bead at most, try to get away from the floats, but like just a hook or maybe a small bead, orange, pink, whatever color you like. The whiting bites will, just be incredible pretty much anywhere along, from Perdido Key to Fort Morgan. But doing that too, you'll still pick up pompano, you'll still pick up bluefish and black drum and redfish. And there's been actually a good many of sheepshead I've seen moved in over the last few weeks in the bays and the rivers. So, there'll be sheepshead running the surf this time of year. So if you're fishing stuff like ghost shrimp, you'll pick those guys up too doing that.
Yeah, man, that's a great report. Those are some great tips right there. We appreciate you sharing your education with our listeners. Folks want to get up with you and book a surf trip or come pick your brain. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. You can find me at Sam's. I'm there 5 days a week. It'll be Friday through Tuesday, or you can give me a call on my cell phone to 678-897-0167. So I can do surf trips or, any private inshore stuff.
Sounds awesome, man. We'll definitely send them your way, man. We appreciate you giving the report as always, and we look forward to hearing from you next time, buddy. Take care.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, Captain Patrick, that was some good stuff from Captain Dusty, man. He really picks it apart. I like how analytical he is. I learned a decent amount about flounder fishing from the beach. Not that I could really probably catch one, but because that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, so Butch, the way I look at things is every little ounce of information you can take in, it should continue to grow. So, I mean, you've probably got more information in your brain than anybody because of the amount of people that you surround yourself with. So, I mean, eventually it's going to burst.
It's got to come to fruition at some point.
It's just going to explode, and you're just going to be the greatest flounder fisherman ever.
I don't know about that, but I really like that idea. Well, that's another awesome report, guys. And it was brought to you by Test Calibration. Is your diesel engine showing signs of low pressure or excessive engine smoke? If so, you may be in need of a repair to your diesel fuel injection system. Test Calibration has been selling and servicing diesel turbochargers and fuel injection systems since 1976 and are up to date with all the latest diesel technology. No matter if you're running a diesel in your boat, tractor, or truck, Test Calibration can help you. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratindieselandturbo.com. Also, Sam's Stop and Shop. Sam's Stop and Shop is your one-stop shop located at 27122 Canal Road in Orange Beach, Alabama. Sam's has a little bit of everything, including a deli, inshore, offshore, and surf fishing tackle. They also have bait, clothing, groceries, name brand sunglasses, and so much more. Sam's also has tackle experts and podcast contributors Chris Veche and Dusty Hayes on hand to answer any questions you may have about any type of local fishing and can also repair your rods and reels if necessary. Stop by and shop or call them at 251-981-4245 today. It's also brought to you by SunSouth. Strength, speed, and versatility, a winning combination on, off, and in the field. At SunSouth, that's exactly what you get with quality John Deere equipment, affordably priced and ready to tackle projects on your own property. Like the John Deere 5 Series tractors with discounts up to $3,500 at SunSouth. And don't forget to service your John Deere Gator at SunSouth with free pickup and delivery packages. Come see us at your neighborhood SunSouth. Equipment for those that do. Some restrictions may apply. See dealer for details. Offer expired October 31st, 2021. All right, man. Let's finish this thing up strong. Let's go get our offshore report. Let's go see what Captain Kendall Annan's doing with Gulf Rebel. All right, Captain Kendall, welcome back to the show, man. How are we doing over there at Gulf Rebel charter fishing?
Another day in paradise.
I like it. Captain Patrick's over here working out his muscles from netting all the fish this morning. He's sore. What you guys been up to? I'm sure Gulf Rebel's taking full advantage of the second snapper season.
Yeah, we've had a few days here or there just trying to dodge the weather, but we've got out a little bit. Bite's been pretty good. So it's nice to see it in the fall.
Yeah, a little
for
different,
the guys
huh?
that come down in the fall. Yeah, a little different, but it's not as crowded. I will say that. But we're just making the best of it.
That's all you can do, man. Well, it's kind of a hodgepodge of things that are open and closed right now. Amberjack closes November 1? Triggerfish closed a couple weeks ago. I saw where lane snapper closed on October 18th. That's pretty interesting. That's never been closed before to my knowledge.
Yeah, first for me, but it's not going to hurt them. I'll tell you that.
No doubt. They can be kind of hard to catch. So, I mean, I think we've done pretty good. We've been talking about flounder a lot on here. I think the state has a little bit to do with that as well, with the November closures, and the hatchery flounder numbers are through the roof. So hopefully this will help with our lane snapper as well.
Right.
I know you guys had a great offshore trip this past weekend. Some yellowfins, some blackfins. Just kind of walk us through what you guys did, what was successful, and we'll chime in as we see necessary.
Yeah, so we squeezed in two tuna trips this past weekend and past weekend before the weather hit. Got us good out there, but yeah, I mean the water's really nice. I mean a lot of bait here and there, and that 40 and probably closer now that I'm talking about it, but a little closer into that 30 to 60 range. The wahoo's been on fire, so we got to play a little bit in there and catch a few wahoo, mahi. But yeah, we got out there and got after it. We didn't have the best crew, or the strongest crew, I should say. First trip, it got a little rough. We left late, so we started late. Ended up catching some snapper while we were out there, and offshore snapper's been biting pretty good. Got a 2-day limit on that. So, and with the fall season, that helps. A little insurance, on the snapper there.
Get some meat in the box early.
Yeah, got some meat in the box, work our way out. But we started in close to the first tuna trip, and the blackfin been biting really good. You just have to fight the sharks and kudas. So we're probably losing 10-1 on those, but it's still a pretty good bite and a good size on the blackfin and close in the ghetto area, and offshore. Blackfin been on fire. As far as yellowfin, they've been kind of picky here and there. You'll get to one rig and there won't be any bait, no sign of life, and marking a little bit. They're all down deep. Not saying they wouldn't be there, but you get to one rig. And it's like I said, there's no bait. So we check one and then there'll be bait. And we've seen to have obviously a little bit more successful bite with the bait, so we stayed around there. And like I said, they're just picky. I think on the first trip we had one nice one, about 70 pounds, lost one. On the second trip we had two and lost two. So,
dang.
Yeah, we got them on the trolling, with the ballyhoo. Had a few big strikes on the diamond jig, but we're not using those heavier rigs. We get some, we lose some, but I think we lost a few on the diamond jig, which is tough. But
yeah,
we've caught them on the diamond jig on the smallers. We've had some 100-pounders, 115-pounders on the diamond jig. So you never know. You just got to be kind of ready to go, have full spool of reel ready to come in. But yeah, we did good on the trolling. And just been patient, like I said, I've seen a few boats out there and probably a little too close to rig, but like I said, we overcast, we trolled around the outside, I would say a quarter mile or so, if not a little further, and ended up getting a nice strike. As far as live bait, we did good on the live bait, had a few big strikes, but like I said, the sharks and kudas were tearing us up on the live bait. I talked to another boat out there that did good with the flying fish. If you can net a few flying fish, they were just tearing it up. But we just had a hard time getting the flying fish.
Yeah, they can be tough to catch.
Hey, Kendall, I'm not much in the offshore game, but I have been around. Like I went to Belize and we caught some barracuda, and barracuda was really good to eat. And a lot of people around here all look at barracuda as a trash fish or unwanted species.
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with that? If you have any insight on that. So in my idea, as a near shore captain, I usually typically I'm going to stay within 9 miles, and I've seen some barracuda around some rigs and stuff. Has there ever been a time where you've actually tried to target them and try to catch them, or are they always a nuisance to you? And Just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't technically try to target them, but when you get them, you get them. I mean, you might get them on the drift line. I think we had about 8 or 9 on each trip. And, you know, our second charter didn't want to take it just because they didn't have room, you know, to take it back. They just, the tuna and the mahi and the wahoo, they took back. But like I said, I think the trick to that is, and they're good to eat. Like I said, I mean, it's just like any kind of fish. The bigger they are, I don't think they're probably worth it.
Yeah.
But like I said, you can eat them. What I do is when I prepare them for cooking, I like to soak mine. And you can soak it in whatever, but I soak mine like zesty Italian or something like that for a few hours or so, and then prep it. And I feel like it helps, you know, when you marinate it a little bit. It might be a little fishy, but like I've never had a problem. I don't think it's fishy, especially when I soak it. So I've always ate it fresh, you know, and treat it like kind of like a mackerel, I would say.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think like down in the Keys and like Belize, like you're talking about, I think they steer away from the barracuda because I think it's a water temperature thing. I think if they're in a higher water temperature environment, I think that's whenever they taste worse and or can be harmful. I think. Don't hold me to the fire on that, but
I ate them in Belize. Now the one I ate, it wasn't really big. It was probably like a 30-incher or so, but
yeah, that's what I've heard too, about under 30 inches.
It was freaking delicious. Like it was, I would put it pretty close to what I felt like was, I don't know, I'd put it pretty close to wahoo, and wahoo is delicious. So anyway, I don't want to intervene on what you got going on there, but when you started talking about it, it sounded as if the barracuda and the sharks are nuisance. And I've always been curious about that, about, you know, while you're out guiding. And I mean, because I'm always guiding, like I'm trying to take advantage of every situation. And I find that a lot of the offshore guys talk about barracudas as being a nuisance. And if they're a nuisance to you, let them be a nuisance to you. I'm not trying to change your strategy, but I was just curious about it.
Oh, no. Yeah. You hate to see, you know, a 20-pound blackfin get snapped in half, you know, and the cuda's sitting there waiting on it. But no, we keep them. I mean, we keep them. So.
And so that's something so like you can be bringing in a 25-pound blackfin and a barracuda, just bite it in half.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's why they get the nuisance tag. Usually is they eat the stuff that we are actually trying to catch. So
fair enough.
Yeah. If something's out of season, he won't touch it. But you bring up like a scamp or something, he's gonna tear it up every time.
That's a fact.
But that's good to know. I'm on the outside looking in on that side of the game.
Yeah. But you're right, though. I mean, like you said, in some tropical places, you just have to check with the local regs or something like that. I think some of the tropical places they eat with more coral. They got that coral fish that's like what I've heard is poisonous, and they eat those, which make it bad, which make them like a poisonous still.
Yeah,
something, yeah. And I can't pronounce that.
Yep.
So for us, we're good though. But so when I prep it though, what I like to do, next time you fillet it more shallower. Like instead of running that backbone, they got more of a red meat spread on the outside. So if you fillet one on the bone, you're gonna have more red meat on top. I just fillet it a little shallower, and then you're left nothing but like a red strip, like a king, and all you gotta do is cut it. Now you won't have so much red on the top side of the meat. That makes sense.
That's a great tip. Yeah, that's a great tip.
That is a good tip.
Well, let's talk about the wahoo a little bit. I'll back you up just a tad. You guys targeting those as far as you trolling a ledge, or you trolling in between spots? How you catching those, and what's your favorite way to catch them, or the most productive way to catch them? Yes.
I mean, we're just pulling some, 7 to 9 inch. I use the bombers, and I tie my own. So I mean, little double skirts, different colors. Any color, it's a preference. I like to use the purple, blue, purple, silver, the mahi color. I put on a little lighter cable. So if you buy one store bought, I don't like to buy some rigs come rigged. I'm not a super fan of it. I like to do it my way because I know if I lose it, it's on me.
Yep,
so I rig all mine up 90 to 135 pound test. Ball bearing, swivel, and all that, and double hook set, and put a strip of bonito on there. We pull speed, 10, 12 knots, makes a pretty good trolling bite. But right now, open water, I've heard them caught like inside 20 and 30s. I think the best luck's been kind of near that double yellow rig and that drop off ledge. It's been real hot over in that area, so we try to keep them in the water. If we're coming back in to catch snapper, we got them out. And obviously in between rigs or drill ships, we're pulling them. I don't care if it's a mile. I'm sending them out because you never know. And I think I said on the earlier episode, trolling over like a spot or something like that before you hit the spot. It's boom. Yep. Hooking up every time.
Yep. Yeah. Or if you're trolling in between spots, there's no telling how many spots you're actually trolling over, and that's obviously an ecosystem.
Right.
Good tip.
Yeah. Throw it out. Out.
Deckhand's worst nightmare, but captains don't care, right?
Right. Yeah. Get them out, man.
That's right. Can't catch them on the couch.
That's right.
Sir.
Well, man, that's a great report. Anything on the yellowfin or the tuna or the wahoo side that you can think that made a difference as far as the tip goes?
Well, as far as yellowfin, I feel like the upwelling, they're getting pushed in. I've talked to a few guys that the bite's getting better. Like, right, there's no Pacific really area. I think all spots have it. I think, like I said, you got to stick to where the bait's at more. And also you got to be patient. If you're marking and there's bait, sometimes you can hang outside the rig more. And I feel like we've done good outside further away, marking. And just like I said, being patient. If you could get a live bait, which I'll talk about that here in a second. But as far as the yellowfin, like I said, you just got to go where the bait's at. And, for us, we're chunking and trolling, doing it all, get up there. And like I said, just got to be patient this time of year. Don't leave a spot too early. You don't want to, if you're catching fish like blackfin, for example, and like I said with the bait, you don't want to leave fish to find fish, but it's okay to go out and experiment like us during the day. We'll go make that run and go check a rig or something like that and get ready and kind of pinpoint for that evening bite. You know what I mean?
For sure. Well, let's talk about that live bait a little bit. Are you guys finding them on the way out as far as coming out of the pass, or what are you guys finding that's plentiful, and how are you catching them?
Here recently, we've been trying to get the smaller blackfin. And like I said, you can use the hardtails. I was going to say butterbean. I don't think nobody would know what that means, but hardtails, anything like that. But as far as like a small blackfin is a great bait. And that's for if you're, trolling, big game. A lot of people use it for everything, but the big yellowfin will eat it too, big eye tunas.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest problem with I hear is people, and I think this is co-oping with the tip here. So this is also the tip that I'm going to give as far as live bait is, like you said, you're fighting. For example, we were fighting the sharks and barracuda. So how that blackfin, especially small one, up as far as like what tackle you're using. If you're jigging, you're probably using a little bit lighter. I wouldn't say lighter tackle, but bottom rod, spinning rod, drag and all that. You got to deal with issues like that. So as far as getting the live bait, now we don't, which I'm trying to rig up like a double set just to have and hook it up to the live with, like where we can at least, because we don't have a tuna tube. So for us, we have to have our gear tackle ready to go if we do get one. So I always got my 50 wides or something on standby with the live bait hook. And so if we do get one, we can just boom, shoot outside and make a drop, so always have your gear ready. But for us, what we've been doing is using like a 50 or a 30 wide, just heavier size reel and pull in like a number size 2 planer. And some people use, you can do like a big spec rig also, and you can attach it and run like a 3-hook deal or just a spoon, like your mackerel or bait fishing up here on the beach. Small spoon or a number 2 size spoon if you want, long leader, same deal. And that way you have the horsepower crank to bring them on in. We're trolling right by that rig where that bait is. But you also got, like I said, you got the cudas and sharks there real close. So if you can scoop one up, you're not fighting the drag and all that. You're just horsing them right on in.
Yeah, you want to winch that thing in to be as healthy and lively as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's been really good. It's putting them on them big rods, the 50 wides or 30 wides, and just trolling with those planers. And just as soon as you get them on, you can surf them in real quick, get them on hook, and most likely it's going to be hooked just right. So they're not going to swallow it. Take them off, and like I said, if you don't have the tuna tube, you're ready to go. You got your other rod ready. You hook them on, run out, drop them, send them on out. And, you can do it with a kite rod or, just drop them straight down. So I feel like using a planer on a heavier rod, if you're trying to get a little blackfin, to use, that's the way to go, especially if the sharks are bad.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, so,
especially if sharks and kudas are trying to eat you up. Got to get that bait
right.
fresh and whole. That's the biggest thing.
So that's the way to do it.
That's a great tip, man. That's a great report, Captain Kendall. Folks want to get up with you and book a trip. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
They can check us out at GulfRebelCharters.com, Facebook, website, or call Brian at 747-7777.
Awesome, buddy. Yeah, always good to hear from you, and we look forward to hearing from you next time.
All right. Appreciate you having me.
All right, guys, that wraps up another great segment. You'll take a minute to check out a few of this week's sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Bucks Island. They have new pontoon boats, bass boats, bow riders, and aluminum boats for sale. They provide boat service on all kinds of boats, even if they weren't purchased from Bucks. Visit them at 4500 Highway 77 in Southside, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-442-2588. And also brought to you by Alabama Marine Resources. The Alabama Marine Resources Division reminds all recreational anglers who harvest gray triggerfish, greater amberjack, or red snapper that their catch must be reported through Snapper Check. This includes vessels, kayaks, and shore anglers who possess any of these reef fish. Reporting is mandatory and must be done prior to landing fish in Alabama, regardless of where the fish were caught. Anglers can report to Snapper Check online at outdooralabama.com or through the official Outdoor AL app. For more information about Snapper Check or any of the 2021 fishing seasons, please visit outdooralabama.com. All right, Captain Patrick, we cannot get out of here today without what did you learn, man? I always pick up a ton of information from these guys and you guys. What'd you learn this week? What'd you pick up from this week's show?
I get a lot of customers that want to go fishing as a primary, but as a secondary is what can they take home? What can they keep to eat? And man, it was pretty interesting. Everybody talked a little bit about what something that was maybe obscure, maybe that was just part of their day. And Bobby was talking about white trout. And I've seen that the same case where we're catching speckled trout and white trout mixed in. White trout has no bag limits, no size limits. So if you're trying to make a fish fry and you're on speckled trout and you're catching white trout, the white trout can help, they can help move that fish fry, add to that count there. And
I definitely
Dusty.
Well, I agree with that. I was just going to say, as far as white trout, and I love speckled trout. They're good to eat, but getting more into inshore and getting more into conservation, I feel a little guilty about killing one, even if it's, in that 16 to 17 inch delicious range. I just feel a little guilty sometimes. So if you can kill a white trout and not feel guilty about it, and it's more delicious, so that's a win-win-win all the way around.
Win-win. Yep. Win-win. So we got the win-win on the inshore. Harvest a few white trout for the fish fry. Dusty, he talked about what redfish, pompano, black drum, whiting, flounder, but he mentioned whiting and kept mentioning whiting. We didn't even dig into whiting, but whiting is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So put yourself in a position to where if you're wanting to take some fish home to cook, want to make some tacos or whatever, whiting is fantastic. And take some of Dusty's tips on how to catch those whiting, bring those babies home. And it's just like the white trout, where there's no size limit, no bag limit. What you need to use your best judgment on size limit on a whiting and a white trout as well. But that works, and they're really, really good to eat. They're fun to catch. I mean, if you have light tackle, you tackle down like what he was talking about.
Oh yeah.
You can catch some whiting and they put up a good fight and they're fun. And then you got Captain Kendall that is, he's talking about all the different, target species. And I pulled him back a little bit into the barracuda talk. And most people don't think about barracuda as being a, target species or something to eat, or but it's a good species to my wife and I we really enjoyed it when we ate it down in the Belize. And I've tried to target them. it seems like anytime I've ever tried to catch one, I see them like kind of hanging out around rigs near shore. I can never get them things to bite.
Yeah.
Everybody talks
they're an
about them being a
interesting
pest.
species. Yeah.
Everybody talks about them being a pest and, cutting them off or whatever. I'm like, man, I'd love to be able to target one and take me a 10-pounder home. But anyway, that's my takeaway. What about you, Butch?
I like it, man. I think I'm right with you with honing in on, I won't say incidentals, but get your setup right for whiting. And then Captain Dusty was saying, you can catch pompano on that setup. You can catch your flounder on that setup. You're targeting those whitings. You can definitely get several different, quote, incidentals that are going to be delicious as well. So you're just, kind of honing in on that staple, but expanding your things that you can catch in that realm as well. If you're ready for catching whiting, then you can also catch all those other fish as well. Same thing with barracuda.
Yep.
I cannot really talk much about that, man. I've never tried a barracuda. So I don't have a whole lot to put on that, but I would think I have written down over here what I learned the most, I think, was live baiting's a big thing right now. And I really like what Captain Kendall was saying about putting down a planer, with a spec rig or something that is going to catch a blackfin, a smaller diamond jig or something like that, putting a planer on it on a 30 wide or a 50 wide. Because, two of the most important things about live bait is being live, right? Being live and being whole. So if you can winch those dudes in and put them on a hook immediately or put them in your tuna tube for later, that's a win-win. So that's what I picked up, man.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool tip that he was talking about, using way oversizing your tackle to get your bait in. That was cool.
But that's important. You got to get it in.
You
got to get it in live and whole. It's pretty much what it boils down to, period, really.
Yeah. If you're wanting to use it for bait, it needs to be alive and it needs to be whole.
All right, guys, that wraps up another great segment. Let's take a quick break and check out a few of this week's sponsors. This week's What'd You Learn was brought to you by MB Ranch King. MB Ranch King hunting blinds and feeders are built to last right here in the USA. With durability and convenience in mind, MB Ranch King's maintenance-free blinds are constructed with high-grade steel and come in a variety of sizes to meet any hunter's needs. They offer high-quality, easy-to-use corn and protein feeders that can be filled with both feet on the ground. Call Kevin today for more info or a quote at 205-807-2937. MB Ranch King, built in the pursuit of perfection. And also brought to you by Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. Make the choice that professional captains all over the Gulf make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. Man, Captain Patric, I really appreciate you letting me co-host with you this week. It's a great Alabama saltwater fishing report.
As always, I enjoyed being a co-host. I've hosted a few times whenever you were you
out of pocket. Yeah, you guys do a much better job than I do. Maybe I just need to get you off this thing full time.
No. You got it.
Between your fishing knowledge and my useless witty banter, we got a good thing going here.
We do. Hopefully people enjoy it because we ran really long this week, but
it's all right.
I hope, my guys are enjoying it. Oh yeah.
Well, man, you were telling me off air a minute ago that you're booking up until October of next year.
Not booking up.
Booking trips.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yes. I'm booking trips all the way into October of next year. And what's happening is people are getting off the boat and they're enjoying that experience. And they're like, all right, look, this was really cool. When should we book this trip for next year? Or when should we book this trip? Something that mirrors this in the spring or something like that. And we're going ahead and putting those on the books.
Yeah.
And
that's a good thing.
It's very humbling for me that people are wanting to go ahead and invest into their, putting that stuff on their calendar and putting that away. But yeah, the rest of this year, November is booked. December, I'm down to just a handful of days.
That's great.
Yeah.
Man.
And then January and February, what I would say to anybody that's listening, January and February, we get a lot of weather that comes through. So it's like, yes, it is hard to say, I'm just going to pick this day or whatever. What I would like for someone to, some people to be able to do is to reach out to me and say, hey, I want to do a trip in January. I want to do a trip in February, but I'm open, I'm flexible for some change. And those really work out well for me, because then we can pick out a date that just like, we can just put it on the calendar. But if it's blowing 45 out of the Northwest,
you can push it a little bit and get a good day.
Yeah.
Let's
be flexible, because I don't run as many trips in those 2 months, and and those are some, but we can certainly catch a lot of fish and we can have some good trips, and it can be fun.
Thing about that is, and what I say all the time is, if you don't put it on the calendar, it's never going to happen. So if you put it on the calendar and you can push it, at least you'll get a day eventually. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Regardless if that's weather or whatever's pushing it, you'll eventually get to go fishing. But if you don't book it, you're definitely never going to go.
That's right. Yep. It'll just be an afterthought.
That's right. It'll always be I wish I would have booked it. Yep.
Yeah. I wish I would have booked it.
Well, man, if folks want to get up with you and book a trip and try and get in that calendar, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, the best place is just go to my website, uglyfishing.com. Click the book now. You can see my calendar. All of that is live. Actually, while we've been recording, I had a trip booked in I think in March. The guy wanted to book a trip for sheephead fishing.
That's awesome.
So that's the best place. If you have questions, then just give me a call or shoot me a text at 251-747-1554.
Awesome, man. Good time. Great fishing reports. Enjoyed it, man.
I've always enjoyed it, man.
Look forward to talking with you next time, buddy. Keep whacking them. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Butch.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. You guys, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Again, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Subscribe to our email list, and we'll send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them. We'll talk to y'all next week. This Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org. And also brought to you by Fish Bites. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits as well as tackle at fishbites.com. And also brought to you by Photonis Defense. Photonis Defense PD Pro Ultralight Ultra Compact Night Vision Systems. Simply the best in-class night vision systems ever built. Contact them at photonisdefense.com to learn more. Photonis Defense, Masters of Darkness. And also brought to you by B&M Pole Company is more than just panfish. Check out their Sam's Super Salt series designed for shallow water fishing for trout and redfish at bnmpoles.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report brought to you by me, Angelo DePaola, The Coastal Connection. Find us online at thecoastalconnection.com.
And also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999. And also Killer Dock. Killer Dock uses marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. Killer Dock combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit killerdock.com to see more. And also brought to you by Mustad Fishing. 1 in 4 hooks in the world is made by Mustad Fishing. See why they're the best-selling hook brand. Enjoy 25% off your next order at mustad-fishing.com by using code GREATDAYS at checkout. And also brought to you by Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks are proud to be your metal roofing headquarters for over 40 years. Save time and money by buying from the most reliable manufacturer on the Gulf Coast. Buy it today, pick it up today. With the addition of their new store in Cantonment, Florida, they now have 8 locations to serve you. Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks, your metal roofing headquarters.